Okay, so I'm with NPN Cancer Connection, which is a nonprofit that is geared towards helping NPN patients throughout the U.S. It's also used as a funding agent for PV Reporter, and PV Reporter is a website that I've had out for about 5 years that's very deep in resources and has drawn in a lot of community support. And my project here is finding an NPN specialist, and so I saw that there was a need to do this, and we'll talk about that in more detail. So first of all, patients needed a resource page to look for NPN specialists in the United States. Many newly diagnosed patients were not even aware of what an NPN specialist was. So really their feeling was the first oncologist or the first hematologist that they saw, they thought they were a specialist. And the reason for that was, well, I've never heard of an oncologist, I've never been to a hematologist, so they must be a specialist. So that's kind of why the patients needed a resource that had the stamp of approval that this is a true list of NPN specialists, not just, go to the internet and type in your city. And you'll see a link here to the NPN specialist page. The best way I can tell you is just go to pvreporter.com, and that link lives permanently in the top right-hand corner of the PV Reporter homepage. So as far as implementing the project, one of the top questions that I see in the Facebook groups and is really, where can I find an NPN specialist? So I created this page early this year to help meet this need, and it has become the second most visited page on PV Reporter since its inception, and it demonstrated that the need was there. So I began working on this project at the end of 2017 after meeting my doctor at ASH, and I explained the project that I had planned. And I asked him if he would review the initial list of NPN specialists that we came up with, and then first of all add his stamp of approval to it that they were all in fact specialists, and secondary, maybe there were 8 or 10 other specialists that he might be able to add to the list, which certainly became the case. And so all parties agreed to help out, and we were ready to roll. So I began obtaining a broader list of hematologists from another organization that is serving the blood cancer community, and I asked one of our patient advocates to review the list and remove any doctors who were not really specialized in NPNs specifically. So I then went out and I kind of brainstormed my own list of all the NPN specialists that I could think of, and with PV Fog that was a challenge. And then I also asked one of my patient advocate helpers to do the same. So in doing that, it kind of brought a community aspect into things and got the help of the community, and also used the NCCN guidelines for, it's created for patients as a tool to help have resources to learn about their NPN. Great resource. It also lives on PV Reporter on the bottom right-hand corner. And I looked at the panel members that were in the NCCN guide, and from that I was able to gather some more NPN specialists to add to the list. So I combined all of the resources and lists into one comprehensive list that included the following. So it had the state, it had the doctor, and it had the cancer treatment center that they were from. My doctor did a final review of the list, and he added probably 10 or 12 more to the list at the time. And then the NPN specialist list was published, I believe it was January of this year. So there were certainly some key challenges in getting this list together. One of them was there was another patient recommended list of hematologists that had a very firm footing and was really not a reliable source. The reason being, a patient recommended list, you could have a patient that's brand new and he or she might say, I just saw the greatest doctor and put them on the list. They don't know that this wasn't really a true NPN specialist. And so that's a serious problem with any patient derived list. So a list needs to be prepared by a patient advocate with a review committee as well as an NPN specialist is key, 100%. It has to be that way. Also, getting patients to understand the benefits of a doctor-reviewed list versus a patient-reviewed list. So that kind of covers that in the above point. Another thing that I ran across was vetting the list to verify that each doctor that was added was a true NPN specialist. So I engaged the community to help me add to the list. And in doing that, there were certainly some doctors that I'd never heard of, not that that meant anything, but I needed to make sure that those doctors were in fact NPN specialists. So in doing that, first of all, I would research Google, and I wanted to see, were they doing clinical trials, were they involved in new research, and I think we'll see a slide on that coming up. Okay. So as far as the result and impact, when a patient asks for a recommendation in their area, the Facebook group leaders refer them to the NPN specialist page now. So I'm very active in the multiple Facebook groups, and their stamp of approval was really needed to get this resource into a wide distribution of patients around the U.S. And when I send out a newsletter, or any sort of cross-promotional activities that I do with partners, I'm always sure that the list reaches more patients with that initiative. And also, as the list gets updated monthly, I post a link to the page in the Facebook groups, and I thank the patients for their submittals and for their help on the list. And then I go back and I say, well, let's keep this list growing. This is a living, ongoing project. So help me out again. And I list my email and I said, please send me more NPN specialists. So this has led to community support for growing the list and making it a true resource in the community. And as far as some recommendations, if you're looking to do this in your country, be sure to engage the help of other patients in your community and ask for support from an NPN specialist in your country to review the list and offer recommendations. Part of the vetting process for me was not only reading abstracts and seeing what doctors are doing in clinical trials and what type of research they're doing in NPNs, but I'd actually take the extra step if there was a doctor that was kind of borderline for me, and I'd get on the phone, I would call their cancer center. Usually I would get some sort of assistant, and I'd have to tell them a little bit about PV Reporter. I said, look at the website, go look at the web page, so you can see that a lot of your other specialists are on there, and they could see that this was a list that they wanted to be on. So it was free of charge for everybody. It's a free resource to the community. And what I found in doing that was once I made that call to the cancer center, inevitably, that's a tough one in the morning for me, I would get a call back or I'd get an email back, and they'd say, yes, Dr. Smith is an NPN specialist, and we're willing to back that up, so please go ahead and add him to the list. Or sometimes I might get a call and say, really his true focus was in MDS, so we would hesitate to call him an NPN specialist. So for me, that vetting process of making the actual call to the cancer center was key. So this has been a very rewarding project for me personally. I know it's making a difference, and more people are seeking the help of an NPN specialist in their local area, and they're not depending on that first doctor or the first contact when they're just diagnosed and thinking, hey, this is my NPN specialist.